Again, hi everyone. My name is Pat Mike Cohn. For those of you who may be new, I'm the president of the Republican Club of Laguna Woods. I'm here with our vice president of programs, Betty Oliker, and I'm here with our guest speaker, Deb Pauly, and our very key tax person, Sherry Friedenrich. And I want to welcome all of you, everyone, members, guests, especially our veterans. Thank you for coming today. So now I would like to ask Steve Thomason to come up, and we always open in prayer at our meetings.
Thank you, Lord, for bringing abundance to our tables today. As we celebrate the beginning of a new year, we dedicate our lives to making your will, Lord, central focus. Thank you for your guidance this past year, for making our great country better for us. May truth reign as we celebrate our 250th birthday. In Jesus' name, amen.
So fitting. Thank you, Steve. And now our photographer, Larry Goodman, has agreed to come up and read a Jewish prayer.
Well, when Pat asked me to give a Jewish prayer, I told her I really didn't know how to do that. And I told her I could only offer my thoughts and prayers as a lay person in the Jewish faith. But before I begin, I'd like to give you a little background. About a year ago, I went to a newcomers meeting for the Republican Club here in Laguna Woods. I heard Pat talk about the Judeo-Christian values. And after the meeting, I told Pat how impressed I was. Everyone was so kind and welcoming to me. I knew I found a spiritual home, a political home, and a home of friendship. Okay, now for the prayer. I thank the Lord for all the wonderful people here in this room. I thank the Lord for all the Christians worldwide and people of all religions who stand up and support Israel in its time of need. I thank the Lord for all the people who stand up to fight anti-Semitism, bigotry, and prejudice, to make our country and the world a better place to live in. Lord, with your guidance in the year 2026, the world is going to see a wonderful new direction. Many great things are on the horizon with your help, Lord. So, Lord, please give our President Donald Trump the strength and protection he will need to take us on this new path. Thank you, Lord. Amen.
Larry, that was beyond my expectations. Thank you. That was beautiful. Okay, and now I would like to invite Alan Clark up. Alan is our Pledge of Allegiance person who does a fabulous job.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Amen. Two.
Thank you, Alan. And now I would like to invite up Karen Blanco. Karen is our Americanism chair. She writes Globe articles for us, and she's also our secretary, our new executive board secretary. So welcome, Karen.
Thank you. And good morning, everybody. Happy New Year. We have all seen the famous painting of a bold and confident George Washington standing bravely in a small boat crossing the Delaware River with his Continental Army. It has stirred patriotic emotions in us for years. But how exactly did this crossing take place successfully? At the time of the crossing, Washington's army had experienced a series of military defeats, and troop morale was at an all-time low. As the harsh Pennsylvania winter ensued, the soldiers lacked both food and warm clothing, and the army was shrinking due to expiring enlistments and desertions. Washington desperately needed a victory. Washington organized a surprise attack on a well-trained garrison of about 1,400 Hessians, or German mercenary soldiers, who were situated around Trenton, New Jersey. After several councils of war, he set the date for the crossing of the Delaware River with about 2,400 Continental soldiers for Christmas night, 1776. The plan was to cross 3 separate groups across the river, but two groups were unable to cross successfully. Only Washington's main group made it across, but it was more than 3 hours delayed. None of the Continental soldiers knew anything about their upcoming mission. Washington kept all details of the crossing secret. On Christmas morning, 1776, the soldiers awoke to frozen, snow-covered ground. In late afternoon, they gathered along the river, following Washington's orders. The plan was to begin crossing immediately after nightfall, complete the crossing by midnight, reassemble, and march 10 miles to Trenton, arriving there no later than 5 a.m. to surprise the Hessians in battle. However, things did not go as planned. Many of the regiments did not arrive at the river until well after dark, and a severe winter storm of wind, rain, snow, hail, and sleet ensued at the riverbank, slowing the crossing. The boats had to maneuver through ice jams and river currents, and the extreme night darkness made it hard for the boatmen to see the opposite shore. So, how did Washington secure the boats necessary for the Delaware River crossing, and who were these skilled boatmen who led the army across? In preparation for the crossing, the New Jersey Continental Militia had gathered all available watercraft to the banks of the river and secured them. Thus, the British would not be able to access them, and they would be used by the American soldiers when they completed their mission and recrossed the river to safety. About 20 strongly built cargo vessels called Durham boats transported the soldiers across the river. Each Durham boat was 60 feet long, 6 feet wide, and 3 feet deep, with a flat bottom and high sides. With both the front and the stern pointed at the ends, they were propelled along the shoreline by maneuvering steel-tipped poles into the riverbed. Oars were used in the deeper water in the middle of the river. An oarsman would go across the river, simply turn around in his boat, and run it back across the river with ease. There were numerous Durham boats around the Trenton landings, used daily for transporting heavy iron ore and bulk goods downriver to markets in and around Philadelphia. The Patriot soldiers simply commandeered them for the mission and hid them along the river until the night they were needed. Oh, but wait. Unbelievably, the soldiers also transported heavy artillery and 50 horses across the river that night. Washington and his army needed the extra firepower, so over the river at a ferry location came 18 cannons, some weighing as much as 1,750 pounds. They also moved enough ammunition for the coming battle, as well as the horses needed to pull the artillery carriages. For this endeavor, simple flat-bottomed ferries were used, probably fixed to a wire stretched across the river. Fortunately, the area where General Washington and his army crossed was rather narrow, only about 300 yards wide. No one died during the crossing, not even one of the skittish and terrified horses. And who were the skilled boatmen who transported the soldiers and equipment safely across? Washington relied on nearly 500 men in the Marblehead Regiment from Massachusetts, under the command of Colonel John Glover. Most of Glover's men were seamen, mariners, and fishermen from the New England maritime shores. Glover himself was a successful seaman and international merchant who owned his own ship. When Washington asked Glover whether his daring plan to cross the Delaware at night was even imaginable, much less doable, Glover confidently replied, quote, "You need not be troubled about that, General. My boys can handle that," unquote. And they did. The indispensable so-called Marbleheaders are the unsung heroes of the crossing. General Washington updated John Hancock and the Continental Congress in a letter dated December 27th, 1776. In it, he wrote, quote, "Sir, I have the pleasure of congratulating you upon the success of an enterprise against a detachment of the enemy lying in Trenton, which was executed, or in modern language, completed, yesterday morning," unquote. Humbly describing his military achievement in the letter, Washington wrote, quote, "As I was certain there was no making a retreat without being discovered, I determined to push on at all costs," unquote. What an inspiring and unbelievable feat Washington and his Continental Army accomplished. We are indeed blessed to live in this country. Thank you for listening. Happy New Year, and God bless America. Yes.
Oh, Karen, that was amazing. You know what it reminds me of? We just celebrated Normandy, the landing on the beaches over in France. And in a way, in Washington, it was kind of reminded me of the prelude of what Eisenhower and Churchill and all of our allies, what the feat that they accomplished landing on Normandy, right? And to think of all the logistics and everything, every little detail. So only with God, right? We know, only with God. So now I want to invite Betty Oliker, our Vice President of Programs, up to introduce our honorable and esteemed speaker.
My pleasure to introduce the Honorable Deborah Pauly. Deborah is a staff attorney with the Lex Rex Institute, which engages in constitutional advocacy and public interest litigation. She is admitted to practice before the California State Bar and the federal courts in the Central and Southern Districts of California. For more than 20 years, she has been a popular speaker in conservative circles, known for blunt honesty, speaking the truth boldly, and articulating a common-sense approach to current political and public policy issues. Deborah employs humor, godly wisdom, and a conservative libertarian slant. She is often on the speaker circuit, offering analysis of statewide ballot propositions. She is President Emeritus and founder of the Conservative Patriots of Orange County, an autonomous 504c4. She has served on the National Council of the John Birch Society since June 2013 and is on the Board of Directors for the Law Enforcement Charitable Foundation that supports families of police officers killed in the line of duty. Deborah served as a councilwoman for the city of Villa Park from 2006 to 2014 and was an elected member of the Central Committee, Republican Party of Orange County, from 2006 through 2020. Deborah is a summa cum laude graduate from Southern Illinois University, Edwardsville, with a Bachelor of Science in Mass Communications and a minor in Political Science. In 2005, Deborah was selected as a scholar in the Excellence in Public Service Series and Executive Training Program of the Republican National Committee. She is also a graduate of the Defense Information School and served active duty in the United States Air Force as a public affairs specialist. Deborah Pauly.
The older you get, the longer your bio gets. I've noticed that. Can I move these things? I brought some notes. I actually just wrote them about 20 minutes ago because I wasn't sure what I wanted to talk about. That is a really an amazing introduction. Thank you so much for establishing my credibility for me. I do appreciate that. When you say honorable in the world of law, generally speaking, people think that that means you're a judge. I'm not a judge. But I want you to know I'm judging people all the time. I call it discernment. If you walk up to me and your hair is pink and you've got a full beard and you tell me that you're a she, he, they, them, I'm going to be judging you hard. And yeah, I don't want to have anything to do with you. So now I am so honored that you invite me to come back to start off your year. I remember being here last year with you. Wasn't it so joyful to be preparing for what we have now experienced in 2025 throughout the past year? Spectacular. Spectacular. I'm so sorry that I did not bring my laptop, so I don't have any slides for you because I didn't want to take my precious laptop out into the elements. However, I thought it was important that I bring out these fabulous Ivanka Trump gold suede pumps. They are also precious. I am out here so that you may all admire them. Please don't hate me. Aren't they fabulous? Why am I wearing gold? Why am I wearing gold? We should all be getting our gold garments out, dusting them off, ladies, and I'm going to tell you why. We truly are entering the golden age in America, the new golden age of America. Trump has promised it. He is already delivering. You know he is delivering. And I want to start with saying this. You know me, I think we should stay and play locally in our own backyard where we can affect great change. But let me just take a moment to say how grateful I am to see President Trump appointing cabinet members into his administration that are godly, bold leaders, particularly our men. It has been a long, long time since we've had true men in leadership stepping up. I mean, as a prior military member, and my son is still an active duty Marine combat decorated warrant officer, to have Pete Hegseth as our Secretary of Defense is so comforting. He just speaks it out boldly. He brought all, did you see him bring all the generals into the auditorium and speak to them? Speak man to man, the way men speak, are supposed to speak. Warriors are supposed to speak to one another, right? Isn't that true? So comforting to me. And as a woman, it allows me to step back and say, thank God our men are back in command as they should be, instead of these bizarre creatures that the Biden administration brought in. You know, are you kidding me? There is no comparison between our current Secretary of Health and Human Services and the previous thing that there is no health happening with that bizarre creature. And now we are talking about doing things that we should be doing. Eating healthy, going outside, getting sunshine, exercising, teaching our children to do it. Praise God, there's a future that way for us. And let's talk about Marco Rubio. Man, is he slamming it. Oh my golly. Every single thing that comes out of his mouth makes me say, oh, and look, remember when Trump used to call him Little Marco, when they were running? See, this is the thing about him, Trump, our president. He is a warrior. You're either with him or you're against him. There's no sitting on the fence. And if you are his enemy, as he was at that time when they were running against each other in the primary, yeah, I'm going to fight you with everything I have. But once that's over, Trump did a beautiful thing, and he brought all of those people back in together. We are going to fight together side by side. And he placed each individual into the perfect position for their skill set. This is what a dynamic and successful executive leader does, whether in the corporate world or in the public policy world, is they are capable of identifying what your skills are, what your abilities are, what your intellectual capacity is, and putting you where you belong. And if you don't belong, asking you to leave. You're fired. Yeah, sometimes that's what you got to do, and that's what they've been doing. Okay, so and of course, J.D. Vance. We can't go without talking about J.D. Vance. First of all, he's a Buckeye fan, and I had a terrible New Year's Eve. I really did. I'm a huge Buckeye fan, but I started 2025 at the Rose Bowl watching my Buckeyes beat Oregon, and now it looks like Oregon may. I don't know. I care about college football. Not as much as I care about good public policy, but I do care about my Buckeyes, and so that was rough. But J.D. Vance is a great leader. And this is the other thing I want to say, I want to note for all of you, and you should pay attention to it as well. every single one of them, no matter who they are, when they speak, they make it very, 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 very clear that they are speaking with the authority of the president, and they are speaking on his behalf and fully engaged in supporting him and his policies, his America First policies going forward. Every one of them do that. Yes, they are in allegiance with him. They are allegiance with us, to our country, to our way of life, to our Judeo-Christian values, and it's a beautiful thing. How many of you saw what happened at the New Year's Eve party at Mar-a-Lago, where they had a woman painting a picture of Jesus while they were praising Jesus? Yes, at the president's New Year's Eve party in Mar-a-Lago, the name of the Lord Jesus Christ was brought in. He's been bringing it in over and over again. He is a man who believes, and I believe it too, that he was saved from an assassin's bullet for the purpose that he is currently engaged in. He was saved for a reason. He believes it, and it affected him tremendously, deeply to his core. Before I move on to some of my other comments, I think it's impossible to have any kind of discussion about the past year without acknowledging the assassination of Charlie Kirk. Huge, devastating. I don't know about you, but I was devastated for 2 weeks. I was somewhat depressed that something like this could happen on American soil, that a peaceful man of the Lord could be sitting peacefully with a microphone speaking to a crowd of people gathered to hear him, and he would be murdered for speaking these things. It was very, very troubling to me that that happened. More troubling is that because it was Charlie Kirk, and every single thing that he's doing is broadcasting, almost constantly being broadcast live, right? And there are all these young people with their ubiquitous cell phones out capturing this. Many, many thousands of young people watched a man being murdered in lifetime. Whether they wanted to see that close up or not, they saw it. And that is, it has had a tremendous impact on our young people as well. But I think it's actually emboldened many of them. I have been so encouraged by the young people that I have been meeting, really young people, younger than my children, you know, very young, in their teens and early 20s, who are standing up boldly. They're standing on faith. It has empowered and emboldened them. They have decided that they are going to be the warriors that we need. I have a lot of faith in the future of our country because of these young people. Do you see it as well? Have you seen it? Take note of it, because I think for a while there it seemed hopeless. Didn't it seem like it was a hopeless situation? And in our public schools, it is rather a hopeless situation. As we're entering the golden age of America, for me, we're looking at, I'm assuming all of you are on Social Security, if you have it available to you, a $6,000 write-off at the federal level. I believe it's a $6,000. Is that accurate? That is going to be a benefit to many, many people. For those of us that are in the military in the state of California, for the first time ever, our military pensions will not be taxed. Are you aware of that? That's the very first time, yes. Well, was that Trump's doing? No, that wasn't Trump's doing. I'll tell you what that's all about. Gavin Newsom thinks he's going to be our president. He thinks he's going to run for president in 2028 and that he is going to win. It's our job starting today to ensure that that does not happen. By calling him out, by letting everyone in the rest of the country know what kind of horrible things he has done to us. That military pension gift that we've been given, that we're not having our military pension taxed, is sunsetting in 2028. They usually don't sunset things, but that they're going to sunset, so we'll have to fight that job again. 2028, how interesting. So just through the time that Gavin Newsom is running for president, when he starts running for president, then we're going to take that away. But we're only using that to curry favor with the 1.8 million military veterans that reside within the state of California. So pay attention to that. You've been hearing rumors through some of the Doge investigations and a lot of the corruption that has been happening with our money, our tax dollars. Oh my goodness, the Somalis are just having a heyday, right? Opening daycare centers. Why don't we all open daycare centers and just start tapping into that? Illegal is all get out. Who are the Democrats protecting? Them. Are they protecting the taxpayers? No. Who are they attacking? Those who are calling out the corruption. That's who they are attacking. Can you believe it? Not the individuals who are participating in the corruption, covering up for the corruption, benefiting from the corruption. Not those individuals. Talk about wrong thinking. There is so much wrong thinking that takes place. And what we need to do, and what I'm seeing more of us doing, is to boldly speak that. Just say it. You can't go out necessarily and walk precincts. Maybe you cannot. Maybe you cannot even talk about some of this stuff with your family without them deciding that they're going to cut you off. But I'll tell you what, it's way more important that they're aware of the truth, because the truth will set you free, and you need to help set them free from their wrong thinking. We have an opportunity on social media. How many of you are on social media? Any form of social media. You can get on there and just correct people. You can just get on there and correct them. Let them attack you. It doesn't matter. They can't really find you probably. But probably. No, they can find me. I've had death threats, so I tend to try to be very viable death threats with arrests, incarcerations, tries, and convicted. Viable death threats. Why? For speaking the truth. People don't like necessarily you speaking the truth because it exposes them. The light exposes the darkness. Be the light anyway. One tiny little light can illuminate an entire dark room. If there's darkness all around you and you are the only light, you are the thing that people will see. Please be that thing. Please be that thing that people will see. I think you're going to see an announcement pretty soon about the $2,000 rebate per taxpayer. This has been a wonderful journey that they're working on. Let's get local. Let's get local. The most important thing affecting us locally is Prop 50, right? I'm going to talk a little bit about the district boundaries. I understand that Pat kind of gave me a little bit of an assignment last night. I don't think she meant to. She says she has no idea what congressional district she is in anymore. I believe Laguna Woods will be in the 47th congressional district with these new boundary lines drawn, which means you are inheriting Dave Min. Well, I know. I know. It's really bad. It's very bad. There's a handful of individuals that are, tossing their hats in the ring. We'll see what ends up coming of that. I actually do not have a good, solid answer for you who those individuals may be. But our primary in 2026 will be in June, not March, because it's not a presidential year. And also, California likes to keep you confused. When are we voting? Literally, they're one of the few states that just pings their primary back and forth based on whether it's a presidential year or not. When are propositions going to be before you? Is it going to be in the primary, or is it going to be in the general election? They ping it back and forth depending on who has actually placed it on the ballot, just to keep you confused. Now that we're under the Voters' Choice Act here operating that way in Orange County, they move about your vote center. Used to be you knew exactly where your precinct was. It was the same place every time. You walked, probably could walk to it. You took your little cheat sheet with you and you walked down. You waved hi to all your friends. When you checked in, they knew exactly who you were because they see you every day. You go in and you vote. That's not the way it is anymore. Everybody gets mailed a ballot. Very, very bad thing. Very bad thing. So many illegal things happening. Georgia finally admitted that they counted over 300,000 ballots that were not legitimately cast. Boy, Rudy Giuliani's got a great lawsuit on his hands because he was carved up pretty hard. So that's what's happening nationally, is that we have illegal voting happening, and now we have redrawn district boundaries, and Pat Mycone is one of the most engaged individuals I know, and she doesn't even know where her congressional district is, right? That's scary, because you don't know who is running and who you're running against. I do know, and of course you're all aware of the fact that there have been lawsuits challenging this Prop 50. I'll talk about a lawsuit that's currently pending in federal court. It's not mine. Mark Moiser, I'm sure you're familiar with Mark Moiser. He's carrying that. Mark Moiser is a constitutional attorney with the Dillon Law Group. Harmeet Dillon is a wonderful civil rights attorney who's currently working in the Trump administration, and by virtue of that fact, she is no longer allowed to be a principal owner or operator of Dillon Law Group because of the potential conflict of interest. So I think it's her brother is actually running Dillon Law Group right now, but Mark Moiser carried a lawsuit, but here's the problem, two problems, the way I see it. One of the problems is they selected a plaintiff, that's the California Republican Party, and what they are trying to allege is that Prop 50 is a violation of the 14th and 15th Amendment because it's race-based gerrymandering. Well, then why in the world would you have the party, a Republican Party or any party, political party, as a plaintiff? Because that gives the opposing side the opportunity to say, oh, no, 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 this was party-based gerrymandering. And everybody kind of knows it was party-based gerrymandering, right? We all know it. We were all fighting back and forth as a result of that. But the second problem that we have here is the Texas race-based challenge to their district maps. Texas did the same exact thing that California did, only the Texas Republicans did it. And the Supreme Court on December 5th gave the green light to Texas efforts to be able to use the new congressional map that's favorable to Republicans in the 2026 elections, despite a lower court overturning it. It was an emergency appeal, a writ to the Supreme Court, and they sided with Texas. Sam Alito joined Justice Clarence Thompson and Neil Gorsuch, three of the very best justices in my opinion, and they wrote a separate opinion agreeing that the court's decision to pause the lower court's order, they wrote that Texas needs certainty on which maps will govern the 2026 midterm elections. He had two main points, because it's indisputable that the impetus for the adoption of the Texas map, like the map subsequently adopted in California, he wrote this, was partisan advantage, pure and simple. Now, how is that going to work for what's happening in our federal courts? The Supreme Court just said that. Partisan gerrymandering has always traditionally been okay. Not race-based, but partisan, and this is what's happening here. My opinion is that the Prop 50 congressional districts will be upheld, at least on the race-based gerrymandering challenge. They have yet to give their decision in that, and it was expected to happen before Christmas. It really was, but they still haven't. I checked yesterday. They still haven't. The longer it draws out, the more likely it is that they are going to uphold Prop 50's party-based gerrymandering, more than likely. Because they need to have time. The state is going to say, oh, we need to have time to go ahead and get the ballots ready, to go ahead and redraw these lines, blah, blah, blah. And of course, the longer that draws out. But also, it's pretty hard to fight against words that just came out of the Supreme Court's mouth a month ago. Almost impossible. And I don't even believe that they had the advantage of that information prior. I do want to talk a little bit about a challenge that Lex Rex Institute is preparing to file. Pat Mycone has been a supporter of that, and I know we have many people who have been. We are challenging the flawed envelopes that were used in the Prop 50 mail-in ballots. Okay, this is an unusual opportunity. Why is it unusual? Usually when you get your mail-in ballot and you take all your ballot pages and you fold them in half, you stick it in your envelope and you mail it off, you really have no issues. But this was one single issue. So there was one single sheet of paper in almost every, there were a couple of pockets in the state that had a couple of other issues, so there was more than one sheet of paper. But for Orange County, and for Sacramento County, and LA County, and Shasta County, and some of those that we've been focusing on, it was one sheet of paper. So the state kinda, this is being taped, bit itself in the ass. Okay? It's one sheet of paper. When you take that and fold it in half and stick it in your envelope to mail it out, all you have to do is hold your envelope up to a light and you can see right through it and see exactly how someone voted. Now, that's not the case with every single county. That is the case with Orange County. We have had a tradition going back to the 1800s in this country that your ballot is private and secure unto you. That's why when you walk into vote centers or any precinct, there's little walls separating so no one can see how you're voting, right? So that you slip it in a little sheet and you take it back and you run it through the machine yourself so that you can keep your vote private. We all know that it's precious and private. People are asking each other how they voted. When did that start being okay? That's private information. That's like asking me about my medical conditions. If I'm not freely providing that to you, you shouldn't be asking about it. And the government should not be providing ballots to every single voter that makes it easy to see how someone voted. Well, you know, I don't like this one. Let's throw that one in the trash can. It's worse in LA County, where half of the ballots, when they stuck it back in the envelope, there was literally a punch hole through the envelope where you could see whether the no mark was checked or not. And every single envelope up in Sacramento was that way. Every single envelope. So there's a punch hole right through it. And it was brought to the registrar of voters' attention in Sacramento. And what they did was send their spokesperson out to the media to tell people to turn their ballots inside out. That's not a solution. So what we're doing with the Lex Rex Institute is we've decided to focus in on just the 3 counties that I kind of talked to you about, Orange County, LA County, and Sacramento County, to keep it simple. We're looking for declaratory and injunctive relief. That's our primary sources of remedy that we want to see. We need to ensure that our votes are secret and private, but also it's an opportunity for us to challenge the Voters' Choice Act, which has been nothing but trouble ever since it has been enacted. And only half of the counties are using it, which means that half of the counties are treated one way and half of the counties are treated another way, which is absolutely an equal protection issue. Everyone needs to be treated the same way. Your vote should be private to you, whether you're voting by mail or whether you choose to vote in a vote center. And that's also an equal protection issue. So that's the way we're going to come at it. We're going to give it a go. We're going to give it a try. People are being fed food. Should I stop talking? All right. Well, I mean, you can eat. Look, I'm a mother. I am used to people ignoring everything that comes out of my mouth. I'm used to people eating while I'm still trying to serve them. You know, oh, what are you doing? You're done. I didn't even sit down yet. All right. So that's okay. I just want you to know, I don't want to keep you longer than I don't want to over. Well, I'll try to stay within that window. I'll do my level best. All right, so here's the thing. So I've already told you what I think is going to happen with Prop 50, at least for the time being. You know how much I love young Kim. You know that that's not true at all. You know that I have been on her case constantly for her voting record. So I'm still within the 40th Congressional District, and she is as well. And she is now running against another congressional representative, Ken Calvert, who is also in the 40th Congressional District. Immediately, instead of trying to fight 50 at all, she sent out a press release talking about how much money she has in her coffers and how much money she's already spent on media buys. So that was really important to her to try to scare off Ken Calvert. Look, here's what's happening. Aside from a big disparity in their voting records, the Lincoln Club has already endorsed Ken Calvert. The Lincoln Club of Orange County has already endorsed Ken Calvert over young Kim. I don't think they ever truly wanted her, but they didn't have what they thought was another viable option. There are a couple of reasons for that. One of those is his great seniority, and he has a senior position in key committees. It takes a very long time to move yourself up in that area. But I'm going to draw out my Freedom Index. Last year I popped it up on the board for you. You can get these hard copy through the John Birch Society, or you can go to the John Birch Society's website and look for Freedom Index to see how your congressional representatives score, strictly based on do they vote in accordance with the Constitution or not. There are 2 key votes that occurred that really set young Kim and Ken Calvert apart. And one of them has to do with eliminating DEI, right? Ken Calvert, of course, voted to eliminate DEI, and young Kim voted just the opposite, which is just the opposite of the Trump administration and their agenda. Right away, that's a problem for me. The second one is defunding U.S. aid. Remember when Elon Musk and Doge was exposing all the waste of money that was being basically laundered through U.S. aid? Ken Calvert voted to defund U.S. aid, and young Kim voted just the opposite, to continue funding it. Why? Because she is a globalist at heart. That is critical. I'm letting you know this on the off chance that we overturn these congressional districts that have been redrawn based on Prop 50, but also you have friends that are in the 40th Congressional District, and they need to know we do not need her back in Congress. We need somebody who will align themselves with the Trump administration's America First policies. I want to talk about one other thing. How many of you have ever heard of the franking privilege? Oh, a couple of you. You must be political, you must be political nuts, right? So you're always in there. So some people have never heard of the franking privilege. I want to talk about it a little bit because I consider it a huge waste. I've got 4 of these that came to my house. This has got young Kim on it, right? This was paid for by taxpayer dollars. The franking privilege has been around almost since the founding of the country. The purpose of that was to allow the representatives in D.C. to inform their citizens back home. That was a lot harder to do back in the late 1700s, early 1800s. There was no social media. There weren't even phones. There was none of that, So the only way was for them, and you can see she actually initialed it up here. That's what franking is. They sign it in lieu of postage. I've got 4 of these, 4 different ones that came to my house. She's been in Congress now for how long? 4 years, 6 years, something like that. I've never seen one of these come to my home. But it looks an awful lot like a campaign mailer, doesn't it? It looks exactly like a campaign mailer. There's $50,000 budgeted for each congressional representative to use for the franking privilege still to this day. And she's never used it to communicate because she doesn't really have to. She sends things via email. We know what she's doing, which is mostly raising funds. But none of this looks anything like information. It looks exactly like what I get paid for from campaign funds. And I've received many of those, and it's very upsetting to me. And I think when you're seeing any of your congressional representatives wasting tax dollars on this, you should call them out on it, whether it's Congress or not. Also, the same situation, it's not a franking privilege, comes out of Sacramento. Oh shoot, where's my Sacramento examples? Well, because it's even worse. These are paid for with administrative funds, discretionary administrative funds that are given to your assembly representatives. The assembly representatives are mailing these things, here it is, to you, supposedly to inform you. Look at this. This is what is on the front side of this thing. Look at that. Information. Is that valid information that my elected assembly member mailed this to me, and all it has solutions to lower the cost of living? Please, here's a solution. Stop wasting my tax dollars. That's one solution. That would be one solution. And then it's just a bunch of data that he's collected by asking questions of the constituency. What a waste of money. There's so much waste. We need our own Doge. Oh, wait a minute. We've got Sherry Friedenrich. We've got a Doge here in Orange County. We do. We're lucky that we have her. So I've talked about the Freedom Index. How many of you are familiar with the John Birch Society? Yes. How many of you have joined since I visited with you last year? I know that Pat Mycone has joined. There's so much valuable information that comes in that magazine. You don't always have good local media that's providing you with local information that you can count on. And that is really very important, that you support types of print media that will speak to both sides of an issue, right? Instead of just one side of an issue. And that's pretty much all I'm going to say about that. I want to talk a little bit about, I've got a couple minutes, and I just want to talk about what I think are going to be hot button issues for the next year. The hottest button issue is absolutely, without a shadow of a doubt, going to be immigration reform, and birthright citizenship. I believe so. So SCOTUS, that's the Supreme Court of the United States, has overturned 50 years worth of bad rulings, what is called stare decisis, right? You know, let the rulings stand. Stare decisis means you don't overturn things. And there's a good reason for us having, you know, that kind of a policy. People need to know that once a final ruling has been entered, that they can count on that and not be blown away by the fickle winds of a judiciary that's constantly changing their mind, because you're going to already have fickle winds in the executive branch. You're already going to have fickle winds perhaps in the congressional side of the equation, part of the tripod. So if the Democrats take control of Congress, they could completely change a lot of laws, right? But what's happening out of the courts should be solid. So it is quite a huge statement that this current SCOTUS has felt it proper, and they were right, to overturn bad law. Roe versus Wade was the very first one. Did Roe versus Wade make abortion illegal? No, it did not. It took it out of the hands of the federal government and put it back where it belonged, in the hands of the state government, which rightfully, constitutionally, owns those laws that have anything to do with the health, safety, and welfare of their local community. So there are states like California that have become, a mecca for coming to get your abortion. Kill your unborn baby. But you have to do it here. But nonetheless, it's important to note that the Supreme Court overturned Roe v. Wade. Recently, the Chevron doctrine, huge overturning of deference to the administrative state. They have now decided that there is, through Loper-Bright, which is a huge ruling, overturning 50 years worth of stare decisis, that we have all come to rely, allowing the administrative state to craft all of these rules without anyone overseeing them. They're saying, no, major questions doctrine would dictate that if it has a major policy or financial impact, those decisions need to be made by Congress. You cannot continue sending your decision-making authority onto the administrative state and allowing these bureaucracies, these giant alphabet soups of bureaucracies, to make the rules that the people have to follow, because they are not accountable to the people. You are. So that was a huge overturning. What you may very well see is Young Kim Ark, which was written in 1898 by the Supreme Court, declaring that's what they've been hanging their hat on, saying that birthright citizenship, anyone who comes here to the United States of America and drops baby, that baby has an automatic birthright. That's not necessarily true, because it never really talked about whether that individual was here as a temporary visitor or an illegal immigrant. And yet that's what that's what courts have been, that's what the country has been hanging its hat on to allow for birthright citizenship. That is going to be looked at very seriously. I sent this brief to Pat Mycone. I'm going to send it to her again. In October, my boss, with the Lex Rex Institute, the founder of Lex Rex Institute, Alexander Haberbusch, working with Dr. John Eastman as counsel of record for the Constitutional Counsel Group, wrote a writ of certiorari, a petition for the writ of certiorari to the U.S. Supreme Court concerning the birthright citizenship issue, which will most certainly be one of the hottest issues and a very important issue as we enter the new golden age of America. On Friday, December 5th, SCOTUS granted certiorari, which means they are going to be hearing it early in the year. I think if there's ever an opportunity for us to have real clarity in what our immigration laws truly mean, what does the phrase in the Constitution "and subject to the jurisdiction thereof" truly mean? What does that mean? And you're going to see that. I think you should all pay attention to it. I'm going to send this brief to Pat again and ask her to share it with anyone who would like to really dig deep into what we are talking about here. One of the things that is 100% for certain, we have struggled as a country for a really long time with how to get our immigration law, our immigration policy right. It has changed over the course of time, and over the course, I believe, rightfully so, to the changing geopolitical dynamic that we are confronting at that time. And so there are those who would say that we need to have a constitutional amendment locking it in to law. I don't know that that's necessarily the best course of action. One of the things that's beautiful about our Constitution is that it has been amended so few times. It has been thoughtfully amended. And one time they even thought, we screwed up real bad, and they had to undo it. Our Americans, they need their alcohol. So we're going to have to undo that one. But, so I feel like we should never willy-nilly want to open our Constitution up for a constitutional convention or an Article 5 constitutional convention or or amending our Constitution with very little forethought. The Constitution of the state of California, as an example, has been amended over 600 times. Any elected official in this state who raises their hand and takes an oath of office that they will support and defend the Constitution of the United States of America, right, against any enemies, foreign and domestic, can read that Constitution. And then they follow up by saying that they will support and defend the Constitution of the state of California. I read Supreme Court holdings. They go on forever. But I have yet to finish reading the entire Constitution of the state of California with all of its amendments. And yet I've taken that oath. So just think about that for a minute. One other issue, the last issue that I'm going to talk about, has to do with restoring parental rights. And, I'm a grandparent. I think many of you are probably grandparents and great-grandparents. We should be very, very concerned about what has been happening in our public schools. I'm still engaged. We are still engaged in a lawsuit against Los Alamitos Unified School District and Pauly Institute, LLC. No, Pauly Institute, Inc. The LLC was dissolved. Pauly Institute is an outdoor education science camp. Every single sixth grader, is it sixth grader, fifth graders, in the state of California goes to outdoor education science camp for a week. These are tender-aged kids, 10 and 11 years old, right? Many of them, it's the very first time they've been away from family, aside from sleeping over at grandma's house or Aunt so-and-so's house, away from family for a big sleepover, and it's a big deal. This is what happened to some children. Pauly Institute bills itself as the most LGBTQRS+++ friendly science camp in the West Coast, on the West Coast. They did not inform the parents that this is what they were. As a matter of fact, they purposefully kept it a secret, and two families, the mothers went to every single one of the information meetings that the Los Alamitos Unified School District held, even though one parent had been through it 3 other times with older children. She still went to everyone. They read all of the information. They signed off everything because they wanted to be sure what their children were being sent into. And when the these little children got off the buses and they're standing there, and these, honest to goodness, some of them have been let go, so they're no longer on the website, but our mothers were bright enough to screenshot those kids to see what they were. They were pink-haired and nose rings, and they were named Bambi. And my name is Bambi, and I like to be called him, her. And I'm Sally. I am they, them. And I'm Butterfly, and I'm Daisy. And what do you want to be called, little girl? And these little girls were like this. These two children, not at the same time, not in the same cabin. They were at different weeks. One of them was in a room with someone who was the camp counselor that identified as a man. And all this little girl knew when she left was that she wasn't supposed to be in cabins with the boys. And so she asked the camp counselor whether or not she was a boy or a girl, and all that happened was she started yelling at her and calling her stupid, and she started crying because she's a tender little child. This was a delicate child, a good girl from a good family. She was not used to this behavior, and the camp counselor said, if you don't stop that crying, I'm going to grab you by your pigtails and pull you down out of that bunk. And they would not allow her to call her mother. You know, no cell phones. Now they're trying to defend that with an anti-SLAPP suit, strategic lawsuit against public participation. We sued both of them, both Los Alamitos, for allowing these children to go up to this camp sight unseen, and Pauly Institute for subjecting these children. Really, the main issue is without the knowledge and consent of the parents. If they had said, and we are going to teach your children about gender fluidity issues, these mothers would have said, I won't be signing up. And that would have been that. But they didn't do it. So I think you're going to see a hot button issue. We were able to prevail at the appellate court level. I'm very pleased with the judge that we were assigned. I can't even tell ya. So we'll be back down in Superior Court. Keep your eyes and ears open for that one, because if we win that one, it's going to be a great, great victory for parental rights and the precious hearts and minds of our delicate children that are being targeted in the very place where they should feel the safest. God bless you, and God bless America as we enter 2026, the new golden age of America. With your help, we can do this.
Oh my golly. You know, it's funny. I talked to her this week, and she goes, well, what am I going to talk about? I said, what? What are you going to talk about? You know what to talk about. So I wanted her to give us vision for the year and give us guidance. And Deborah, thank you so much. It was just fabulous.